with your experience in the B-2, I mean, talk to us about how extraordinary this mission was tonight, bombing these 3 Iranian nuclear sites.
It certainly is extraordinary, and hats off to the 509th Bomb Wing out of Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. This was an exceptionally planned, choreographed, with taking into account some risk, obviously, but the fact that we got our B-2 bombers across the targets, as the president mentioned, and now outside of Iranian airspace, speaks to not only our airmen's capability, but the joint force, the joint military force that enabled this mission to really now, at this point, to be success. Now, let me, Natasha, just put in perspective. We also will go through and achieve some battle damage assessment in the coming hours in the next day or two. But so far, so good. And this is an extraordinary moment for not only Israel, certainly, but the United States. I think the Mideast has really changed forever at this point. Should we have been successful, and I anticipate we were, and taken out Fordo.
Tell me more about that, the Middle East being changed forever. Do you think that this may effectively cripple Iran's nuclear program?
Absolutely. On the other hand, if Iran was able to get a nuclear weapon, you and I talked about this before, if they were able to get their hands on a nuclear weapon, that would have changed the Mideast forever. But now the fact that the United States, and by the way, Israel has been outstanding, a remarkable air campaign over the last 10 days to pave the way for this strike by our B-2 bombers. But the fact is that if indeed the United States was successful in taking out these nuclear weapon sites, these development sites as well, that will change the course, I believe, of history in the Mideast should Iran now be denied that opportunity, because they not only put United States interests in harm's way, but Israel, but also the Gulf and Arab nations as well. So I think this is going to be welcome news throughout the Mideast.
And give us some insight here with your background. These 6 B-2 Spirit stealth bombers taking off from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri just early this morning, literally today on Saturday. They were accompanied by KC-135 refueling tankers. Tell me more about this. Roughly how many pilots would you expect in each one of these? It sounds like they did not have to stop and refuel. This is a mid-air refuel. And also, we were speaking with U.S. Brigadier General John Teichert just a few moments ago on the show. He said he feels it's a very real possibility that Guam was never the destination, that this was the mission from the beginning. Can you speak to that as well?
And I appreciate John's commentary as well. I was, again, the first B-2 stealth bomber squadron commander back in the mid-90s when we actually brought this airplane into the operational Air Force. And so this is a rather proud moment in the Newton household. But beyond that, what's really important, though, is that the men and women who not only, fly the jet, but also maintain it, they put the weapons on it and so forth, they're absolutely critical to this mission success. There are 2 pilots on board the B-2. We can fly that aircraft for hours. In fact, the longest combat mission in history, Natasha, to put things in perspective, was actually 44 hours after 9/11 on the 8th and 9th of October 2001, where we flew a round-robin mission from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, struck targets in Afghanistan, and then continued on to Diego Garcia. So the airplane has, from a historical standpoint and an operational standpoint, and certainly through the skill of the support men and women of the aircraft, but also the operators, the pilots themselves, can fly long endurance sorties here. This will be probably at least a 30-hour mission, I presume. John Teichert was right. I don't think that Guam was ever in the target portfolio here. I believe that there was a lot of effective military deception along the way. And the fact that we were able to get what sounds like 6 B-2s across a target is remarkable. But to back up, this is, however, we make this, the United States makes this look like it's easy. It's not. It's extraordinarily complex. There's lots of challenges. There's up-to-minute last changes. You've got multiple air refuelings, as you mentioned, Natasha, with those KC-135 aircraft. And they will also have to tank up, as they say, with the tankers, meet their tankers going back home, presumably if they deploy back to Whiteman Air Force Base. There's also communications challenges and as well as communication changes. There could be new intelligence updates to the crew inside the cockpit regarding threats. There are also, I presume, that there would also be other aircraft involved. Could have been, for instance, the FN-18 Growlers. They provide electronic warfare support that's common around our bomber missions. And so it's quite a complex mission, but one that we have historically accomplished, but also we train the way we're going to fight. And that's what we're seeing play out tonight.
Wow. And, Trump reposting just before Truth Social crashed, Fordo is gone. Talk to us. What makes these bunker busting bombs so extraordinary, specifically the American technology here, because we're not the only nation that has them, but we have the best of them. Talk us through that initial blast and then the second blast that allows this to penetrate even into a bunker that is deep, carved into a mountain.
Well, slight correction, Natasha. I really like to correct you, but actually the United States is the only nation in the world that has these 30,000-pound bunker busters. Technically, they're called the GBU-57, and the only aircraft able to deliver that weapon is the B-2 that we're seeing here on our screen now. And so what you've got, in a very broad sense, I don't want to go into too many details here, but you've got a B-2 flying over the Fordo target, and it is going to release or what we would call employ these. It carries 2 of these 30,000-pound bunker busters, so that's 60,000 pounds of bombs. 2 of them. The first bomb would go in, and it would burrow into a portion of the Fordo nuclear weapons center there, and it has a delayed fuse. It's being precisionally guided by very technical means in order to make it as precise as possible where the pilots want to direct the bomb. It burrows in, and then as with the delayed fuse, it goes off that 30,000 pounds, which think of it in terms of what you're trying to do is you're trying to create an earthquake. And by creating that earthquake, you get a seismic condition and so forth. And that causes those tremors and so forth. And what I would, if I were weaponeering this target, I would probably have that second 30,000-pound bomb that's released by that same B-2 and that same crew to go in right after. So it's almost as if the first 30,000-pounder goes in, softens up the target, if you will, even though it's hardened, and they're 250 to 300 feet in the ground surrounded by 3 foot of concrete. But nonetheless, then that second bunker buster goes in there, and that really is the one that completes the deal. And so that's what we're going to be looking for in our battle damage assessment to see if it was effective. Now, why Fordo? Fordo is absolutely the crown jewel of the Iranians and their nuclear weapons development capability. They've got up to 2,700 centrifuges. That, again, that's the centrifuges, the means by which they're able to enrich that uranium to military-grade uranium to create a nuclear bomb. But also, their nuclear weapons scientists are down there. There's other infrastructure aspects of this. My final point here on Fordo, we could talk all night about this, but nonetheless, there are probably 2 main entry points that you want to focus on. There are other there are other aspects of the target you want to go, and I presume that's what the targeteers focused on in this particular strike.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Tell me a little bit more about this. We see immediate and diametrically opposed reaction coming out tonight. We're just monitoring some of this. Representative Thomas Massie, Republican, in response saying, quote, simply, this is not constitutional. And then we also see Senator Tim Sheehy saying moments ago, quote, to the naysayers out there, this isn't starting a war, this is ending one. What is your perspective on this tonight?
I believe in that. I think it is ending a war. Can you imagine any president of the United States who had the ability to take out Iran's nuclear weapons capability in this rare moment in time? And if Iran was, if it didn't happen tonight and Iran got its hands on a nuclear weapon and was able to then lob that weapon against Israel. By the way, there are 700,000 Americans in Israel right now. There's 45 to 50,000 men and women in uniform, in our military uniform, serving around the Mideast. This is absolutely in the core interest of the United States. And so, again, I believe what President Trump has done is he has made the decision and the right decision to protect U.S. core, actually to enforce U.S. core interests, but also to protect the American people. The fact that Iran, and we're making a presumption here because they also went after Isfahan and Natanz as well, I presume, that if those nuclear weapons sites are taken down, that means Iran is very close to being out of the nuclear weapons development business, at least for not just the short term, but I believe for the long term as well. That's good for Israel. It's good for the United States. Frankly, it's good for our Gulf Arab partners. And frankly, this is good for humanity.
General Richard Newton, always appreciate the context and time. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.